Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about my sweetheart lychee tree and give you some important tips to make sure that you have a great chance for a great harvest. This tree is about 1.5 years old in the ground. I planted it from a 7-gallon container, and it's rewarding me with some amazing spikes here all over the tree. It's got flower spikes. Beautiful tree, fast grower. But you know what? If you're growing lychee trees, there's a lot of things that need to happen, and there's a lot of things that you need to be aware of in order to make sure that you have the best shot at getting some fruit. Now, nature has a lot to do with it. Obviously, the weather has a lot to do with it, but what you do has a lot to do with it also. I'm going to share some of that information with you so that you guys can do much better when you're growing your lychee trees. Also, we're going to follow this tree for the next 5 months. Okay, the next 5 months we're going to follow this tree to see how it develops and what I've done to it and what happens. Okay, fingers crossed that it turns out to be that I'll end up 5-6 months from now showing you a video where we're enjoying this together. And so one of the things I wanted to point out to you is you can see those panicles. Those are what is also referred to as the spikes or the panicles, the portion of the vegetative growth that differentiates itself and becomes, instead of leaves, it becomes fruit, right? But before it becomes fruit, obviously it has to differentiate itself into a bud for a flower. Now, what is it that initiates that? That's what is important for everyone who grows lychee trees to understand. Okay, so the lychee tree being from a subtropical climate, very specific regions in China, and the trees there are hit with a certain amount of cool weather. So what you really need in order to get your lychee tree to produce the flower spikes is timing, and you also need to have the correct temperature. So anything below 68 degrees, okay, 68 degrees for a period of about 40 hours is what I've been led to believe over the years. This is what I hear from people saying that grow lychee trees. So 68 degrees is the key temperature. And then obviously anything below that, as long as you don't go into some terrible freezing that kills a tree, which it's hard to kill them with freezing, but you know, they're pretty hardy, but you definitely don't want prolonged freezing periods because that will kill your tree in most cases, even though they usually grow right back as the weather improves. But anyway, with that said, 68 degrees is the key. Approximately 40 hours total of temperatures below 68 degrees. And with that, in a subtropical climate, you will end up giving that vegetative growth, that flush, getting hit with that temperature at the precise time will cause the vegetative growth to differentiate from leaves into flower buds. Okay? Now it gets a little more complicated than that because the types of flowers that you get on a lychee tree are basically the 3 types. You get the male, you get the female, and you get hermaphrodites. But that's not really all that, you know, important for the purposes of this video. I just want you to realize the important thing is that what you do is going to make a difference whether you get fruit or not. And we're going to talk about some of those things in just a minute. All right, so if you'll notice here on the ground, we have plenty of mulch. We have about a 2 to 3 inch layer of mulch. This actually could be much higher, the amount of mulch that I have in here, but this is good enough. And the reason you want to have mulch is you want to protect the roots. The roots of the lychee tree likes to be covered and protected. This also will protect it from the hot sun. It'll protect it from extremely hot weather. It'll help the tree to maintain moisture in the soil, and it also adds organic material that over time breaks down, and it helps to feed the biology in the soil. So all of the life that's in the soil, all of the organisms in the soil, the mycorrhiza, which are fungi, the small microscopic and other types of creatures that are in there like earthworms, all of them interacting is what's going to work in that rhizosphere or that zone of the roots, and that helps to transport the minerals and keeps everybody healthy. Okay, so that's important that you mulch your tree. All right, the mulch should be kept a little bit away from the center. Now this one probably has some laying right there. Let me see. Yeah, but it's not really piled up against the trunk, right? So you don't want it piled up. You want to keep a couple inches away, maybe 5-6 inches. Some people say a foot. I keep a few inches, 4, 5, 6 inches away. And that's because you don't want to end up during very wet weather to have that contact that could possibly cause some diseases and some rotting of the wood, okay? Never actually seen that happen, but I always take the advice of keeping the mulch a little bit away from the trunk, all right? So with that said, mulching is super, super important, but there's a few other important things as well. All right, so here's one of the things that a lot of people completely forget about. And you can see it's kind of windy today. It's not terribly windy, but it's a little breezy, a little bit windy. And these lychee trees, when they're first planted in the ground, and they're beginning to flush out with that new growth, those tiny little, pinkish colored little leaves, and the wind is coming and it's beating it up and drying out the leaves. Well, that sets your tree back and it doesn't grow as quickly as it would. And you don't want the tree to take forever to grow. So, you'll want to protect it. And how can you protect it? When you plant a young tree, it's a good idea, it's a good practice to cover the tree with a barrier around it, maybe like 5 feet, 6 feet away from the canopy, and to just put something up like burlap or plastic or some kind of a tarp, anything that can protect that young tree from getting hit from a lot of wind, because that will set the tree back over a period of time. It'll grow a lot slower than someone who plants one with that protection. Now, very few of you are actually gonna go out and do that. I get it. I have never done it, to be honest with you, so I'm not gonna tell you you have to do it, but this is what I've been told, that commercial grows, when they plant young trees, they like to put those protective barriers around them, okay? Now, if you're a commercial grower and you're watching me, a homeowner that grows, from my own hobby and has had some experience growing commercially avocado trees, mango trees, and things like that, not specifically lychee, but if you know for a fact that what I'm saying makes no sense, then leave a comment, okay? But I have heard from growers who have orchards that their young trees are protected. So maybe make a comment about what you think. All right, so let's talk about water and let's talk about fertilizer. Those are important, okay? Some people say that, the lychee tree should get lots and lots and lots of water. And that is true, but you need to make sure that, depending on the conditions, that your tree has a well-drained soil, and then you can go ahead and give it the water that it's going to need. Yes, it's going to need water. It's going to definitely love water, and water is what helps it to transport the nutrients from the soil. So yes, you want to water your tree. If you're growing your tree in a container, you want to take it easy. You don't want to water so much that that container-grown lychee tree ends up rotting at the roots and dying. And that's typical of what happens with container-grown fruit trees in general. People way, way, way overwater their trees. When it comes to the timing for the watering, okay, right now that the tree has these spikes, these panicles with the tiny little buds emerging into flowers, it's an important time from now till harvest to at least water the tree a couple of times a week. Maybe commercial grows, I understand, they're watering them for as much as an hour, giving them plenty of water. Not exactly sure how often, but I think at least 3-4 times a week, and they give them a good hour's worth of water. The reason for that is they want that fruit to develop into a nice plump fruit that they can sell. Remember, they sell by weight, but you want a nice juicy fruit, you got to make sure you give the trees plenty of water in well-drained soil. As far as fertilizer, okay, container grown or grown out here like in a commercial, not a commercial, grown in a home backyard, you have a couple of these trees. I would recommend, what I do is I use, when their trees are young, I use something that's a time release fertilizer. I'm not going to go into a specific brand, but you'll go into a good time released fertilizer, and you want to make sure you have a balanced nutritional blend, okay, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. When they're young, you can use a higher percentage of nitrogen. As long as it's time release, you're using mulch, you'll be fine, okay? A couple of times a year, it's a good idea to hit them with a micronutrient. Something like a citrus nutritional spray is good. You want to spray underneath the foliage, and that will help to give the tree nutrients a couple of times a year. That's usually done in the summertime. So if you're using a time release fertilizer and you're using micronutrients and you're watering the tree, you're going to do really well with your tree, okay? Now, the flowering and the production of the fruit is another topic we're going to talk about in just a moment.